Okay, so next up, we're going to talk about a clip from the Tonight's Conversation podcast. So we've featured a clip from this podcast on this platform before. In this particular clip, on a recent episode, one of the commentators on the Tonight's Conversation podcast was talking about reasons why he prefers to date younger women. And he basically talked about how dating younger women is most appealing to him, primarily because they are impressionable. Or at least that was the point that he was trying to get across. We'll let you decide how much sense what he said is. But, you know, that was, you know, his logic is, you know, I prefer to date younger women because they're impressionable and I can build with them and do what I got to do with them. So
I love black women shirt. It's hysterical. Well, go ahead.
I love feminine black women at that. Not even just I love black women. You know, I might be I'm the type of person I would wear that shirt too. I ain't gonna lie. I would wear that out in public all day.
Yeah, right. I am not trying to get mauled while I'm at the mall.
We'll go ahead and play what he had to say about dating younger women, and then we'll talk about it.
I think younger women tend to be more impressionable. I think older women, you know, in my experience, you 30, 33, 35, the experiences that you have at that point is just, you know, a little bit too much for me. And you know, I really think in some cases you really can't teach an old dog new tricks. So I prefer, you know, my women to be of the younger variety.
If a woman wants to respect you and give you the respect to lead and be her partner, why do you need to have that level of power over her if you're not trying to manipulate someone?
See, it's not power, it's impressionable. I've never seen a successful partnership where the other person wouldn't allow themselves to be impressed upon. If I'm a person and I got a vision, I got a plan, I got a whole program, I would think that the person that wants to be with me is willing to learn and willing to adopt some of the ways or even some of the principles that I have.
That's not impressionable. Impressionable is basically getting someone to do what you want them to do because they're easily swayed and easily persuaded to do what you want them to do.
Who said that? Did you make that up?
Well,
like when you hire somebody, you look for somebody that's impressionable.
But
why would I listen?
Right, so you even train them. So you can, when you hire somebody, you're about to train them.
Now,
and that's why you want them impressionable.
Whoa, getting a little X-rated with them ass. Boy, I'm like, hey, what's going on? So let me go ahead and get going. Sorry, guys. I'm still, like, my eyes are still watering from the laughter. But, all right, so I've been in situations similar to this where I use a word and I have a different interpretation of that word. And then I'm talking to a woman and I trigger her, and now we're going down some rabbit hole because of a word I use. He said impressionable. I think I knew what he meant there. And it's not their definition of impressionable. But be that as it may, man, where do I begin with this? There's so much to unpack. But I would say that this guy, noble cause, coming in there really trying to explain himself to these older women, just trying to let them know how much they're out of the market when it comes to somebody that's actually willing to settle down, really trying to make some moves. He's not going to choose 31, 33, 35 years old woman. He's using bad language. Can't teach an old dog new tricks or what, bro? Who you talking to, man? Like, they're not going to receive this. They're not. This is these girls' show, right?
Actually, I've seen him on several occasions. I think it's his show.
Oh, I don't know.
I think it's his show.
I mean,
I think it's him. I think it's him and another guy's show, and the women were the guests.
Okay, well, in either case, I mean, his word selection there of can't teach an old dog new tricks, you know, blah, blah, please, impressionable. Yeah. When you hire somebody, you want somebody impressionable. What? Oh, so you can control them? So here's the irony. They say they want a man to lead them, but they don't want a man to control what they do. Now, let's really try to get to the root of that. Now, if you're following a man's lead and he goes left, you're following his lead, you go left. He controlled which direction you went in. Is that not control? Oh, so you can try to control. Oh, you trying to control her. Well, yeah, I want somebody who's going to follow my lead, who's not going to buck against the system, because whatever man or men made impressions on certain areas of their brain, they follow the leads of those men in those areas. So they're no longer impressed by whatever that you're doing, because they've been through so much. They've had so much experience. They're not wild and dazzled anymore. Well, what big deal is that? Well, when we're dealing with feminine women, when we're dealing with feminine energy, and one thing that I'm hearing about from all these women is that if they had an experience with, whatever guy, they're going to want an experience that's better than that with whoever that they're dealing with. So that first guy who made that impression on her, he made an impression. So much so, she still talks to her ex that she broke up with years ago. Why are you still talking to that man? He made an impression on you. And if he made an impression on you, then you're impressionable. So did he say anything out of pocket that he wants an impressionable woman? No. But they're taking it as direct impressionable, naive, stupid. Okay, I'll do whatever you want.
Yeah, they're interpreting it. They're interpreting it as manipulative.
Yes.
So you can manipulate me because I'm which infers weakness.
Yeah.
And that's why they thumb their nose up at it, because they think what he's trying to say is younger women are weaker, right, and therefore I can manipulate them. That's how they took it, even though you're right. That's not what impressionable actually means.
Exactly. And so so any man that's dealing with a woman who's had bodies, all right, they're going to have to compete with all of those men when they're dealing with her. And if at any point you do something unattractive, or if you do something that's not masculine enough, or not this enough and not that enough, but you remember that guy when you were 28 years old that did X, Y, and Z, or took you wherever, whatever. Now you're comparing that guy to this guy because that man made an impression. So you want a woman that you can make impressions on. I don't feel like that's far-fetched. How about you, sir? Do you feel like this man was speaking out of the book of misogyny? Or do you feel as though that these young ladies have things a little confused?
They definitely have things confused, but what else is new? Yes, the actual definition of the word impressionable is I am lacking in certain requisite experiences. So there's an opportunity for a first-time experience to be impressed upon me.
Yes.
Like that's what the word means. It doesn't mean you're just this easily manipulated, naive individual that I can just run roughshod on and control. But see, once again, and I talk a lot about projection on this channel, when women aggressively confront that type of thought process, they're projecting their previous traumatic experiences onto the conversation. That's all they're doing. So in all likelihood, at some point in their past, dealing with a weak, effeminate man, they were probably manipulated by that guy and traumatized. And so they take their PTSD into every subsequent situation that they deal with another guy. And whenever they hear certain trigger words like impressionable or, follow my lead is a phrase that might trigger some of these women. They tend to get out of pocket because they are projecting their fears and apprehensiveness as a result of previous trauma because of poor relationship choices that they made onto every subsequent situation with the new guy. I as well don't think that there was anything wrong with what the guy was saying. Now, I will say that I think that given the room that you're in, it might be a good idea to find different, more creative ways to flower up your rhetoric. So if he had said, I prefer to date younger women because in life, the older a person gets, the more that their experiences become a part of who they are. And I have dealt with difficulties in relationships with older women in my past because they've carried certain baggage and trauma from their previous situations into our dynamic. And it resulted in something that wasn't very advantageous for either of us. And so, given the fact that I've dealt with that in the past, I kind of prefer to date younger women who are going to come into a new situation with me with a little less baggage. Essentially, you're saying the same thing when you say that, but you're not using words like impressionable. So it leads to less of a combustible situation because people, especially women who tend to operate on emotions, can just completely ignore the logic inherent in what someone has to say and just zero in on certain words and just choose to focus on that one part of it. So they'll hear words like impressionable and just go crazy and go off the wall. Not saying that they were going crazy, because these women in this clip weren't going crazy per se. Or maybe they were, but they were just subduing themselves effectively enough. But, you know, they tend to kind of focus on these words instead of focusing on the content of the message. And so if it were me, I would just take the temperature of the room and I would probably just flower up my explanation a little more to avoid a potentially combustible scenario, which is what that in all likelihood led to, because they just kind of were getting off the rails and focusing on the notion of impressionability as opposed to everything that he was trying to put out there in terms of what his message was. But, you know, people tend to project their previous traumas and past situations onto their next situation, the same way that they did what you talked about, in which a woman is going to carry previous impressions that were made upon her into situations with new guys. And so as that guy, you're competing with all of those past situations. I mean, that's life. And we all do that. Every woman is competing with all the other women that this guy has been with, and every guy is competing with every other woman and with every other man that any other woman has been with. I just think, you know, it takes people being reasonable enough to understand that, so as to not get triggered when someone says what their personal preferences are, you know. And that's another thing. Like, just because the guy claims that he likes to date younger women, it is what it is. We all have our preferences. There's plenty of men who will date up or across in terms of age. And so women just need to seek the company of those men who like to dabble in those arts. But to get upset because this guy has a preference for younger women because younger women are more impressionable, which is a fact. That's not a lie. That's true. A 50-year-old woman is less impressionable than a 40-year-old woman who's, you know, a 30-year-old woman is less impressionable than a 40-year-old woman, and a 20-year-old woman is less impressionable than a 30-year-old woman. Like, that's a fact. That's nothing groundbreaking here. We're not making any of this up. But when you're a woman who has made poor relationship choices in your life, and you've been traumatized, and you have baggage because you have more skin in the game because you're older, you're going to go into every new situation with a guy carrying that stuff with you. And at times you may project some of that in this new situation with this guy. And so if a guy reads that projection and says, I don't necessarily want to deal with this because I'd rather deal with a woman who's younger, hence a woman who has less baggage, that's his prerogative and that's his preference, and it is what it is.
Yeah, well, because they're just gonna spin it back to that a man just wants an ignorant woman because a woman that's really in her own power. I've heard it, ladies. A woman that's in her own power is too much for him to handle.
Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, he's so much for you to handle, right? That nobody can handle you. Every man that you run across, they can't handle you. So is it the men's problem? or is it you, man?
Exactly.
And these women here are so combative. They're so combative, and they don't have to be raising their voice to octave 10 in order to be combative. Just the mere fact that they're willing to debate tooth and nail. And the women in our community do this quite a bit. They think that they're always right. They can never be wrong. And so this is where I've realized that you don't debate with them. There's nothing to debate about because it's all cap. All the answers are lies. They have to keep their defense tactic. It's guerrilla warfare. Men are strategic. They map things out. They plan things out. Women, they are anarchists when it comes to warfare, and they'll do whatever it takes. They jumping out the trees, the bushes. They got blades. Yeah, they'll get up on you too, real close. Hey, damn, she stabbed me in the back. Yeah, you bet she stabbed you in the back, bro. So when you're dealing with these warfare tactics, they're going to be pulling stuff out of Sun Tzu's Art of War. And you'll just be out here. Yeah, you'll be out here just, I love her. Bro, she's playing games. You want to talk about manipulators and projection. These are manipulators, these ladies here. And they don't want a man that they can't manipulate. They'll call all of that stuff. Oh, yeah, it's unattractive when I can manipulate a man. Well, why are you trying to manipulate him? Let's get to that. There's other groups of women aren't using their superpowers of manipulation to do that. You are. So there's a lot of women that are in this boat. Is it all women? No. But there's a lot of women in this boat. And this is where guys are talking about where women are refusing to accept accountability and all that stuff because they're willing to fight about everything. Just admit it. Just admit you were wrong. You were sold a lie. There was a lot of stuff that we were sold lies on. Everybody was sold lies on many things. And if you were sold a lie of what feminine energy is and your job as a woman in this world, if you were sold a lie on that, that's okay too. There's other lies out there. But don't fight tooth and nail to the death with these arguments that leave you single for your whole life. And these women here, and I can sit here and say that they're single. Oh, no, I got a man. Or, oh, no, I got people vetting me out. I got bad. They'll sell me whatever. The point is that these women represent an archetype that's walking around in our community that thinks how they think. Now, these women results may say that they have men or whatever, but the women who generally think like this don't end up married. So he's calling it out. Hey, sorry, 33-year-old, 35-year-old, you're washed up, and you can't enter the dunk contest no more. You can't play in all-star games no more. Nobody's checking for you. No more shoe contracts. It's a wrap. So go play in the big three. Go play in the big three. Go to the Y, get some sweats. But you're out of the league, and your opportunity of getting that big-time contract is over. Your window of getting those contracts were when you were in your prime. And so, and the women that are in their prime are the ones that are more impressionable.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Do men want impressionable women? Yes. Sorry, ladies. Yeah. All right. Get with that. Well, I can't. Well, there's other groups of women that are willing to be impressionable and understand that they're women. It's cool, man. It's not a big deal. You were sold the fact that it was a big deal. In fact, the lie that it's a big deal. So it's okay, man. The first part of recovery is admitting that you're a junkie and you got it wrong. So just admit that you got it wrong. It's cool, man. I had to realize, and I'll say this, I had to realize I was sold a convoluted version of what masculinity is. I was sold a convoluted version of what a woman is. So therefore, in my romantic dynamics, I was doing things the wrong way. Even though I did a lot of things right, there were things that I didn't do right, the right way. I wasn't really being masculine in certain areas. So that's why I'll be dealing with a more masculine woman, because I'm not being masculine in certain areas. Yeah, but why am I encountering this? Well, you're encountering this because you don't know what it takes to really be a man. Those are harsh pills to swallow when you're in your 30s.
Yep.
So it's all good. Just admit when you're wrong. Take the L. I know there's a lot of film that you can look back in your brain and go, man, I was off base when I did that. I was off base. Yeah, that's all good, but that's part of the recovery process. But this denial of somebody who's clearly tipping the scales, okay? And then you go into the mirror and go, I'm still healthy and slim. And it's like, no, you're not. You're clearly in denial. So the same thing goes with these logics of being conditionally submissive and only being submissive when a man commands it. It is absolutely dangerous rhetoric. I don't know how far things go. If you do secure your situation, how long does it last? So yeah, bro used the wrong word there, I guess. If
he didn't use the wrong. He didn't even use the wrong word. He just could have. Yeah.
He could have spiced it differently. Put it this way,
right?
Like if he's talking to guys, if he's talking to guys, he can throw that much cayenne pepper in the. We can eat that kind of spice. You're dealing with these people over here who got Tums in their purse and all this other stuff, and you with all that cayenne pepper. Yeah, man, these girls are gonna be water. Yeah, water is too much for me.
Yeah, he wasn't wrong at all. He wasn't wrong at all. It's just, he used trigger words, 4-letter words. He used a lot of those buzzwords that'll just kind of get people all up in arms. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, people just need to be held. What I find, and this is now probably 3 straight weeks that I've spoken to this, and this is something that I notice more with women than with men. There is a lack of accountability for poor relationship choices. Claim responsibility for the poor choices that you've made. Or if you don't want to accept responsibility for the poor choices that you've made, then accept where you are with your relationship situation because of those choices. But you can't have it both ways. You can't refuse to accept accountability for your poor choices, but then criticize a man who says, I want to deal with younger women because they're more impressionable, or criticize all men for being, only good for nothing, but only good for laying pipe, or all of these broke guys out here. I'll never date a broke guy. So many broke dudes out here, and all of this other stuff that they say. Like, you can't say all of that stuff, but then not accept responsibility for your poor choices. Like, if you had better, more practical, if you had a better, more practical selection process when it comes to the men that you choose to deal with, you wouldn't come into every subsequent situation with so much trauma and baggage, and you would therefore inherently be more impressionable despite how old you are. But because you make poor choices and you end up getting beat and clubbed over the head in these toxic relationship dynamics with non-masculine, effeminate men, you end up acquiring baggage. And the more baggage you acquire, the less impressionable you become. And because we don't have a time machine, these things take place over the course of time, days, months, and years. So the older you get, the more of this trauma you incur, thus the less impressionable you become. That's just, it is what it is. Like, there's no getting angry or frustrated about that. It's a fact of life. Like, it's a universal law. You cannot undo that. It is what it is. So people need to, take more, women in particular, they need to claim more responsibility, be more accountable for your poor choices. The guys that you get with, and these guys are directly tethered to your impressionability or lack thereof. And you can get mad at the use of the word impressionable all you want, but the fact of the matter is, the more peace a guy has, the less reluctant he is to get into a situation with you. And the more impressionable you are, the more peace he has, because there's less baggage, there's less trauma, there's less relationship PTSD that he has to navigate. There's less of a minefield that he has to navigate. The more of the baggage that you have, the more of a minefield that he has to navigate, the less peace he has. And the less peace a man has, the less likely he is going to want to deal with you. And it just is what it is. Don't get mad. Just make better choices.
And I'll say this, and women are junkies for being impressed upon. They love being impressed. They're junkies for it. And that's the problem. So when I say baggage in these instances, it doesn't always have to be traumatic baggage. It can be baggage because you got flued out somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
It can be that kind of baggage. Now you're dealing with a guy who you're expecting to take trips and all this other stuff. Why? Because that guy that inboxed you, that DM'd you or whatever, because he's got the guap or whatever, and you got flued out. So now you got this, I'm this, I'm that, or whatever. Or you know, y'all travel here, y'all travel there. So now you're dealing with, you know, a regular guy, but now you have this standard of travel. This is Frankenstein, man. Now you have this standard of travel. And so now you're doing everything well. Hey. But he don't take me on trips like that toxic man from 3 years ago. And then it's like, he's doing everything else. You know, toxic man would take me to what's these restaurants?
PF, not PF chain.
PF
Prime
chain.
112. Prime 112.
Prime 112. Papados.
Yeah.
All right, Papados. You know, he's taking me there, and he's not even looking at the receipt. This guy's looking at the receipt and asking for what bar he's good. Look, he's got coupons. He's embarrassing me. He's embarrassing you. This man's so good with his money. He brought coupons. I'm jealous of this man. But toxic man 3 years ago was doing all of this stuff. So it's not so much trauma that tainted her worldview of the next guy that she's dealing with. It's just baggage that she's expecting the next man to hit the same bar that the last guy did or the other man. And this is Frankenstein man in a relationship. So this is the problem. But if I meet a 25-year-old, for instance, and I'm the one who took her out of town. If I take, you know, this 33-year-old out of town, she's been out of town before. She's been out of the country. She's did all these things. Those impressions were already impressed. So whenever I try to make that indent, somebody else's fingers is already in there. Mm-hmm. And somebody mold already in. I can't do nothing. And that mold is a mold on an imprint of her brain and an imprint of her emotions and an imprint of how she decides to treat you. That's why she can't get over her exes, the one that made the impression on her. So that 25-year-old, I'm impressing her. I'm getting the indents. Oh, that travel? Yeah, I did that. Oh, yeah, that sex in the public bathroom? Yeah, I did that with her. Oh, this and this and that, I did that. So whenever she's thinking about whatever the experiences in her life, I'm the guy who led and introduced her to those. When you're 35 years old, girl, I'm pretty sure you done did a lot of stuff you'd already wanted to do. Now I'm just the guy that's doing it now. But now I'm the flavor of the week doing it now. And yeah, but I want more experience. Mm-hmm. I need more. So, hey, man, the guy spitting facts there. You know, ladies, just acknowledge, all right, if you're on the denial spectrum, that, hey, you know, impressions are key. And you yourselves love impressions and being impressed upon, because if you didn't, you wouldn't be thinking about that shitty man that you're still thinking about because, well, he was so shitty. But why do you think about him? Because the impressions he made. So let's not get triggered by a word. But yeah, man, I agree.
Even when the word is accurate, it's not like he misused it. It was used within the right context. So there really is nothing to get frustrated by.
Hey. It is what it is.
Yeah, if y'all don't want to risk becoming an older woman that men don't desire because you're less impressionable, then you might as well just shack it up with toxic man who made the impression. Don't break up with the guy and become single because this is what you're going to risk having to deal with.
No,
So that
Frankenstein's
dude,
out there. He's out there somewhere.
yeah. Well, yeah, leave it to them. That's what they think. But yeah, that guy who took you to Burma or the
You're right.
Galapagos Islands, and you'll never forget that because he done took. Go ahead and just shack it up with him. You're better off, and just deal with everything that comes with that, because you'll just try to measure every other guy up with that, and depending on how reasonable you are as an individual, that guy is always going to disappoint you, and then you'll turn around and say that all men suck, and you'll just blame all men at that point. But that's what we're dealing with, right? In America, westernized culture is a whole lot of reasonable people out there, and I say that sarcastically. Yeah. Well, yeah. Ladies, be more impressionable. Oh, yeah.